Ready? I want to welcome everyone to the February 19th, 2019 public meeting. It's official time 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This time I need approval agenda, but before I ask for that, I ask the permission of the board to add executive session real estate to the agenda if it's all right with y'all. So,
yes, sir.
All right. So I need a motion. So move. Second. All in favor, aye? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Tonight it's our privilege to have Reverend Dan Wright from First Baptist Church. He's going to lead us in our invocation to pledge. Let's pray.
Father in heaven, we just thank you for this evening. Thank you as we gather here as a community to deal with certain business that's dealing with our community. Pray, Lord, that we know that your sovereign hand is over everything. We pray for our elected leaders, that you would just guide them, that they would seek wisdom from you as they diligently lead our community. Thank you for the opportunity that we have as pastors in our community to come here and to pray for our leaders and pray as a community. Father, pray that your spirit would just be present here this evening. We're just so thankful for your love for us, for sending your son Jesus to die on the cross for our sins so we may have eternal life. For it's in Christ's name that we pray. Amen. Amen. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Again, I want to welcome everyone. Before we get started, first we had our public hearing section. As we get started on that, I'm gonna start off with Attorney Brody and let her start off, and then we're going to invite the representative from asking for this to come forward for the board to ask questions, and then we're also going to give y'all an opportunity to ask questions also. Ms. Brody, would you like to start us off?
As the board knows, there has been a request made for a portion of the right-of-way located off what we're going to call Oak Street. We've had this discussion that it's a sort of side path that is not a named road. On an old plat, it was named Oak Street, but it's not the actual road that with a street sign called Oak Street in Haddock. So just to clarify, again, I know that's been a concern about what we're talking about. But there has been a request to abandon a portion of the right-of-way by the current homeowner. His representative has made that request. Public notice has been posted, has run in the paper. Adjoining property owners have received notice of that as well. And so we need to give both sides an opportunity to be heard on that matter. If the representative requesting the abandonment of the right-of-way, if you don't mind coming forward.
Absolutely.
For the record, introduce yourself one more time.
Absolutely. Good evening. I'm Chris West with Terramore Development, and we are the developer that has a contract with Mr. McNair to purchase the property and to what our intentions are to build a Dollar General store on this property. And I've spoken with a couple of the residents of Haddock this morning, and I apologize to Miss Patricia if she's here tonight. Hi, Miss Patricia. I did get your letter in today's mail, by the way, so it did come in today's mail. Apparently there was a meeting in Haddock last night, and I suspect several of the folks that are here tonight attended, and wish I could have made that meeting. I didn't know about it until a very late hour last night. But do want to correct some information that I think will serve to give some assurance, or give some assurances to the residents in Haddock on what we are asking this board to do tonight, and that is we're not messing with any part of Pine Street. Pine Street, as y'all know, is the street that runs parallel to State Route 22, which is behind our site. And part of that may have been that misunderstanding was probably my fault. We turned in a site plan that was from July of last year, which has changed to some degree. And really that's where our southern boundary of our property is. We were working off of a tax map that was not correct, that showed our property boundary on the other side of Pine Street, and it's not. Our property boundary comes up to Pine Street on its northern margin. So our development will not affect any of Pine Street. And what we're asking the board to abandon is a portion of what the folks in Haddock know as the cut-through road, which is, as Ms. Brody described, is called Oak Street on a plat. I don't know that anybody's ever called it Oak Street. Don't know how it showed up on an older plat as being Oak Street, but it's the cut-through road, and we're not asking for any of the pavement to be abandoned, just up to just a few feet outside the pavement. I think by looking at my map here, it looks to be about 5 feet on the other side of on my side of the pavement. And then additionally, we're asking for a portion of the county right-of-way of State Route 22 to be abandoned, and I think that's like 8 or 10 feet up there. So as we've talked about the last time I was up here, the state route is a 60-foot right-of-way, and then the county right-of-way, or what we understand might be the county right-of-way, is a 90-foot right-of-way that exists because it was laid out in an old plat of Haddock Station Railroad. It was a old railroad plat from, I think it was 1885, that had 90-foot right-of-ways through there. So, and a couple of the folks, actually the houses on both sides of this property actually sit within that area. So they are the best evidence that is not used by the county is the two houses that sit on the other, just on each side of this property. And I wish I had something to blow this up on, but I'll pass these around. This is a new site plan which shows the southern boundary not affecting Pine Street, and actually shows where the store will be laid out.
So you're saying right now, I know there's some outbuildings that are on this parcel, but the houses are actually sitting on this also?
The houses that are adjacent to us are in the right of way along State Route 22. So right, like this house right here is what we're talking about.
Okay.
So we're asking the board to abandon that portion along this property, in addition to the portion along the cut-through street, which there are some old buildings that belong to our seller that belong to this property that's set within there. There's a shed and I think maybe a small barn that's set within that. And I did want to have an opportunity to, there were some, in Ms. Patricia's letter, there were some concerns from the residents that were sort of outside the scope of what I've just described that I'd love to have an opportunity to address. So what I may do is, with the chair's permission, is turn it over to see what, I think the letter had like 8 or 10 concerns. I can address some of those, and maybe I don't know how many folks are here that might be concerned about this particular project, but maybe I can address some of the rest of what the concerns that are here tonight. Let me just pull up this letter real quick just to see if I can hit some high points. And with that,
absolutely. What we'll do is if it's all right with the board, we'll let him answer the concerns, and we'll allow the community to ask any questions, and then maybe at that point the boards have time to think of any additional questions they'd have for the gentleman. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. And I'll preface all this by saying that this property is zoned commercial We're not here for rezoning. We're here just for the abandonment of the right-of-way. But we do understand the concerns of the neighbors, and we want to be good neighbors, and we want to be able to address the concerns that we can, and hopefully allay any misgiven fears. The first one is crime. I remember from the letter, the first is will a Dollar General in Haddock cause an increase in crime? And as Mr. Woody and I discussed earlier today, somewhat at length, the crime is more of a it's not drawn because of a particular commercial use. If I put a bank there, it's not just going to draw out people to go rob a bank or a convenience store. It's not going to. It's more of a result of a surrounding area. So if it's an economically depressed area, you're more likely to have higher increases in crime. Now that doesn't mean that somebody couldn't just stop in and it's going down the state route and stop in and rob the store. That is a concern. It's a concern of ours. We have some protective measures like video cameras and hopefully good lines to the police that in the event that does happen. But from our understanding, Haddock is a very low crime area, so we don't have much of a concern about crime. We can't control what somebody may stop in. That's a factor that we just can't control. The next is traffic safety. So I don't know this for a fact, but I've heard that there are. I think Ms. Patricia may have mentioned that somebody done a study before, maybe the sheriff, where there were like 10,000 vehicles per day that travel that state route through there. So there's a lot of vehicle traffic that's existing there. The Dollar General is not going to increase that number. Dollar General pulls in the traffic that's already there. That's how the business model works. That's why you see these things just about every so 5 miles out in the country on state routes, as they pull from existing area, and usually it's a model of a couple of things. You've got traffic that's just from the state route, but you have a lot of residual local traffic, people that live in the community, that live within about 4 miles of the store. And that, from what our models show, that's the majority of our customers are going to live within 4 miles. They're going to shop there. So in terms of traffic, it's whatever the existing traffic is, this is not going to have that big of an impact on it. We've submitted our plans to the Georgia Department of Transportation, which their number one thing that they're invested with is traffic safety. So they've looked at our plan. We've gotten feedback from them. They've approved where the driveway is going to be. They looked at speed limit. They look at counts of vehicles per day. Now, what they cannot control is people that, if it's an area that people are not abiding by the speed limit on an ongoing basis. So if people speed through Haddock, that's something that we want to be able to work with you to address with the sheriff, to have an increased law enforcement presence out there.
You don't think it's going to be a traffic problem when y'all take that road?
And we're going to allow the citizens, sort of the opposition, an opportunity to ask questions and to speak in just a moment.
Sure. Thank you. So the road, I think, were you referring to the cut through road? So we're not taking the cut through road. We're just taking the right of way that exists there beside it. So our driveway won't come in off the cut through road. We won't impact the cut through road. It comes right in onto the property. But like I say, that's something we want to work with y'all with. If we need to increase law enforcement presence out there, hopefully maybe we can work with scheduled patrols to have deputies out there. That's in the interest of everybody. Let me get to this letter that's in the list here. Okay, lighting, and particularly for the neighbors. That's an easy fix. That's something that I can control. We can have downward facing lighting. I was telling Mr. Woody, we build in Florida in beach communities where people are really sensitive to the turtles activity on the beach. It's a very, very real concern for them down there. And so what we've done is we actually have lumen studies that we go out and do, and we look at, we make sure that our lighting does not pollute off of our site. So that's a commitment I'll make to you that we'll do, and I've already told Mr. Woody we'll do that. The downward facing lighting, so that the lighting will be contained onto our property. It will not fly off the site. They're good looking light. It lights up the parking lot really well, but it won't fly off the site. So hopefully that's something that is a concern that we'll take care of. Decline in residential property values. I'd be concerned as well, but I can allay your fears there. Both the tax office and the county tax office and property appraisers, if you're a realtor or a realty property appraiser, they appraise residential and commercial totally separate. So the residential development and the commercial, they don't affect each other. So it's not going to make your property value go up or down. There's obviously this property value is going to increase because there's going to be a little over $1 million building put on the property, so it's going to make it go up. But the houses that are residential on both sides across the street, it won't affect them. And we've also, I've had a realty appraiser actually testified and give a sworn affidavit to that effect. It wasn't that long ago. It was over in Macon. And he testified to that and did a sworn affidavit. But the county, all of the county tax assessors that I've spoken with, and it's been several, they've said the same thing. Trash accumulation. That one is big for me too, because I drive by some of our stores and see trash out there, and it bugs the stew out of me. That's something that the county can help us with their inspectors to make sure after the store is done, after the store is built, and it looks nice, that in a year from now continues to look nice, by the inspectors come by. If there's a violation of county code, that the store make sure it's adhered to. And we'll work on it from our end too, but that's really from Dollar General store managers assigned responsibility, and I can't tell the store managers how to run their store, but if there's trash out there and a county inspector files a report, that goes above their head, it gets fixed very quickly, and it only takes a couple of those for it not to happen again. So that's in everybody's interest to have a clean store. Negative impact on future development of Paddock as an artistic district. Y'all may have, for those of read the meeting, there may have been a picture, but this is essentially what we proposed the building to look like. So I think that's, some not all Dollar General stores are equal. I think that's a pretty good looking store. I think that'll go well with what is there in the community.
I don't know if all the commissioners have seen that.
Okay, that gets most of it. I think with that, I will turn it over to the board for any follow up, and then.
Okay, what we've got and you'll still, but we've got some citizens here signed in, and we'll give you an opportunity to come up before the board has a final decision. But at this time, we'll entertain questions. Who would like to ask the first question? Anybody got any questions?
Does the deal require ACL lane on that?
They would have determined that one's not needed.
Any more questions?
Concerning property values, do you live next door to a Dollar General?
I don't.
If you did, do you think the house would bring as much as it was before that store was built?
Well, one of the guys that I work with, he actually owned the store. He built one right across from their family estate in Athens, Clark County, and he said they like having the convenience of it. But to me, it goes to having it clean. If the store's clean, it looks good. I'll tell you an example. We did one in right outside of Destin, Florida. Probably $400,000 home set back behind there. It's a store that looks similar to this, but it's a little more beachy. And I was down there, we built that store probably 3 years ago. I was down there vacationing this past year. Store looks great, neighborhood looks great. They go fine with each other. So it's more about what the community is. And that's kind of the concept of the Dollar General, getting back to the old general store. It kind of got away from that. You see some of them like in Metro Bibb County, for example, and they look, frankly, they look terrible. But you know, a lot of those stores are not ours, by the way. And that's why it aggravates me to see those. But the concept is getting back to a neighborhood community store where it's the community that shops there, and hopefully we all do our job to keep the store looking, good appearance. I certainly want, as the company that owns the store, I certainly want Dollar General to do their part in keeping it clean. But I think with that, I've seen many instances where nice neighborhoods and nice Dollar General stores go well together.
Have you been to the site? I mean, have you laid your eyes on the site?
I have not.
Okay. That's my major concern.
What
Because
part?
you don't know. You're going by a model that your company has created and you haven't seen the site. You haven't seen the cut-through road. You don't
Well,
know.
I've seen the Google, I've seen all the
Let me
Google
tell you,
Drive.
that's not good enough. We all live there.
Yeah. And you got one lady right here that,
So what part of that concerns you?
you know,
It's in the neighborhood. It's in
yeah,
our
I mean, there's
neighborhood.
plenty of properties for sale right out of town right there. I mean, y'all are cramming this thing in and trying to take right away, cramming it right next to people's houses.
And
You know,
Okay, so
y'all normally
I've
don't
had-
do that.
Well, I've had a couple members of our.
That's why I'm wondering why you're doing it, you know? I mean, there's a lot of properties for sale right out of there that y'all purchase from those.
Okay,
All right,
let me
let's
jump in. We're not gonna create an argument.
Right.
The opponents, if you all would like to stand up and have your opportunity to come
John.
forward and voice your concerns,
Sure.
we would welcome that, but I'm not gonna have
Sure.
anyone feel attacked or create a situation where we're arguing in the audience. So if you all would like to take turns and step up to the podium and
Right, we've got
voice your
them
concerns.
signed in here.
Okay,
Sure.
you just wanna call them?
Yeah, is there any of the other questions?
How is this gonna affect Citgo, because that's our only source of gasoline and propane?
We do not sell gasoline. I don't foresee this in the future selling. It's happening to be a lot of challenges.
Well, I own
Be a good
convenience
symbiotic
stores,
relationship.
and I have been put out of business by Dollar General. It's not my favorite company, because the people go there for their snacks and their drinks and cigarettes, and that's the inside sales for the C-stores. That's what makes them money,
Sure.
not the gas.
No.
So it puts you out of business. You don't have the gasoline anymore, and now the small community that has a source of gasoline.
I understand the concern. I've actually sold two convenience store owners that own the tracks across the street. So I went to communities where they own the corner, both corners, opposite corners, had a convenience store, sold the other one, and to my knowledge, those stores are still operating. But will there be competition? Sure. Yeah, your bread, may be more than ours, but there may be other products that you may do better. But we will not sell gasoline.
Well, that really doesn't concern me. It's the inside sales that are hit, and then that's what your business is really, not the gasoline anymore. So then you have to close your store. Had it no longer has a source of gasoline and propane, no one wants to buy your store across the street from a Dollar General. So now you have to take out the underground storage tanks, and that is not cheap.
All right.
Well, yeah,
If-
I think of several scenarios where the
All right, I'm getting it.
stores have done well with the, and actually some commercial developers will probably tell you that the additional, traffic stopping actually maybe, so like, if we give somebody to stop that would otherwise go through the fuel somewhere else, they stop at Dollar General, since they stop, they may go over, and you actually may see an increase in things like your sales. That's just the deal.
That's the money
Yeah.
maker, though.
Sure.
Ms. Terry, would you like, you're signed up, you're first on the list, would you like to come forward and talk to the board first?
While she's coming up, I do want to say that we've had at least two other gentlemen from our company that have been on the site several times and have looked at many sites and have talked with many neighbors. So I say I haven't been there. That's the case, but from our company, we've put a lot of shoe leather on the pavement in
Well, my name is Terry Denson, and I live at 144 Altman Road, which is 3 miles west of Haddock. And I feel like I kind of been sandbagged here because I hadn't seen these specs or new programs or whatever, so I'm just kind of tap dancing up here. And I'm speaking against the Dollar General being in Haddock. My first objection was that we were having confusion over just where this was and what the name of the unnamed street in Haddock was. And I was going to ask Tara Moore if they would republish their notice, but put an addendum in there and say, but apparently I don't know if they're still taking part of the unnamed street or not. If they're not, that's kind of a moot point. But it has been confusing, and it has wasted a lot of people's time, including mine, just what street we're talking about.
To answer the first part of that very quickly, this would be the right-of-way, not actually closing the street or taking a portion of what the pavement is that's known as that street, if that clarifies that issue for you at all. The request is to abandon just a portion of the right-of-way that runs along that street that you all know has no actual road sign up there now. I know you mentioned that was confusing for you, so.
It's still confusing for me.
So can you clarify what a right-of-way is in respect to the street?
Yes.
The center line?
Yes, so the street would not be impaired or closed in any way. You would still be able to access that, use that for a cut through. Vehicles would still be able to utilize that street. The actual right-of-way that's been requested, and I know we have a drawing of that if you'd like to step forward to see that. The actual right-of-way runs.
I'm wondering if a continuance wouldn't be in order after all this new information.
Runs along the edge of the actual property, which is the property owner now has had a building that sits on that right of way for probably 50 plus years. So it's sort of, when you look at that property, what you see is like their mailbox and their outbuilding that's sort of falling in on the property. That is that section of right of way that's being requested.
Okay. Well, there is he's not claiming this is his property then, where the outbuildings are.
No, that's county right of way.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. But he's not claiming the road, but he is claiming the right of way. So we're still under the statutes, is that right?
Well, it's county right of way, so that's why they had to request that the county abandon a portion of that right of way that runs along the edge of. So here's that home. Here's the road. Okay, here's the road. The road would still be in place. This is the right-of-way that runs along the edge, and they have an outbuilding that sits there. It would be a portion of this right-of-way that would be abandoned, not the roadway itself.
But the same arguments would still apply.
Well, I mean, you can make your arguments. I'm just trying to answer your question as far as what the actual request is.
And if it would be okay, if you could kind of circle or draw that and let them pass it on.
Sure.
So I can see that.
Highlight it.
Yeah, that would be right.
There we go.
And
Well, the first requirement to abandon anything is that it has to be in the public interest. It can't be for your own personal economic gain. That's been held to be an abuse of power by a board of commissioners. And it will not be upheld by a appellate court on that basis. And I submit to you that this request is all about personal gain. Remember, Mr. West is standing in for Mr. McNair. He has a power of attorney. So he stands in the shoes of Mr. McNair when he's making his request. And I'm anticipating that Linda Baker is going to tell you that she asked Mr. McNair while he was doing all this to the neighborhood, and he said he needed the money, and that is an economic benefit. It's not a public benefit. And, you know, if Terramore hadn't come along, we wouldn't be here. Mr. McNair would be a landowner and landlord in Haddock, and the neighborhood would remain residential and available for development along the plans of the Georgia Department of Tourism and people looking ahead now and historical societies. We would retain our character and our 100-year-old building and not have a Dollar General. And I really don't care what the aesthetics are of a Dollar General. It will not make up for the destruction of this building and the character of Haddock. It's going to put a damper on economic development for Ms. Trish Ann's. You will not get cultural tourism here with that building in the middle of Haddock, which is what the Department of Tourism wants. It wants Haddock to be an art center. And with little old ladies like myself coming by and buying things and eating lunch at Trish Ann's. And little old ladies just aren't going to stop where there's a Dollar General. The second requirement is that the abandonment must cease to be used by the public to the extent that no substantial public purpose is served by it. So we're talking about houses and business. Well, there are none on this right-of-way, of course. There's just the property that should not have been put there in the first place. So the public can't use it because, well, they can't use it. Can't drive through there. But this is, I've never heard it called the cut-through before, but it is a road that can go to Pine Street and can go to Bowen Hill. And now that I know it is a public road, I've been using it as a bypass around that yellow traffic light at Bowen Hill and 22 because it's a dangerous spot. You can't see to the left because of a utility pole. Another thing the courts look at is the number of users. Are they increasing or decreasing? Well, we're a small community in Haddock, so just one car is a tremendous impact. And that one car on that road and any potential right-of-way, well, that's me because I'm now using it. And I put some pictures in your pamphlet that show the road going from 22, and you see cars there. So we do have traffic and residential. Now, one of the houses is in foreclosure, the yellow house. Another picture goes to Ward 22. And you notice I put Oak Street in parentheses because we couldn't agree on what the name of this was, and South Hardeman. And the road's in really good condition in Haddock. I guess it's because there's not a lot of traffic and wear and tear. And really, if that's a county road, you should put up a road sign. Because I didn't know it was a road. For 21 years, I've been passing that road twice a week and had no idea it was a road. So anyway, I'm opposed to it.
All right.
Thank you
very much, Ms. Stason. Mr. Sean Comer, you're next on the list.
How y'all doing? Good. How you doing? I don't know. There's not a whole lot we can do now that they've changed the drawing from what we had last night. It got changed again this morning. I hope that this is the original. and it doesn't get changed again. That's what it seems like. Everything's changing so much. I'm not sure what's original and what's not. I hope it doesn't change again. But I know this has been zoned back in the 80s. It shouldn't have never been zoned commercial. It's right in the middle of a residential area, but that's neither here nor there. It's done. We can't do anything with that. And I know there's not mansions all around it and all, but it is everybody's homes and stuff. And I don't know. It seems like they're trying to squeeze something in where it doesn't need to be squeezed, right on top of people's homes and stuff. And I don't know. I just think there's too many other areas where they'd have plenty of room to build and do whatever they want to without just squeezing in here on top of everybody. If I lived right beside it, good Lord, I don't know what I'd do, or if y'all did, if they were putting the thing 75 feet from your house, I mean, it's just, I don't know. So we really don't have anything to fuss about, except for it's going to be there stuck all over everybody's houses. So ain't a whole lot to do. It's y'all's call.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you.
Ms. Arlene Hamilton, you'd like to come forward? You're next on the list.
Hi, I'm Arlene Hamilton, and I'm here tonight as a member of the county's Historic Preservation Commission. I spoke with the Haddock residents several times over the past few years about forming an actual historic district. And while the residents didn't choose to formalize that, I would just like to emphasize this is a historic community, and the economic development tourism team that was here recognized Haddock in several ways, and they talked about the 21st century traveler looking for unique experiences, and they talked about rail to trail experiences, and they talked about the artist escape that Miss Denson has mentioned. So you've got a really unique community here that was highlighted in the presentation from that economic development team, in addition to all the concerns about the residents who are living there. So I just wanted to come up and emphasize that again, and I would encourage y'all, as you are making your decision, to try to do something that will protect this residential corridor from what's going to be an openly commercial encroachment, never mind the impact on the residents that live around it. So, thank you,
Ms. Hamilton.
Thank you.
Ms. Linda Baker.
I'm Linda Baker. I live next door to this site. My house is 99 years old. I work very hard to keep it as is and keep my property straight. And I don't appreciate a Dollar General being put next to my house. And it doesn't have to be squeezed in between residential homes. Like somebody said previously, there's plenty of property down that road, both ways, that if people would approach them and ask them if they're willing to sell, I'm sure they could find a piece of property there. Now, we have a store across the street, convenience store. There's already some folks hanging out there, okay, asking for money, buy me this, buy me that. Dollar General comes there, all they're going to do is cross the street because Dollar General stays open later. And then we're going to have another hangout over there. And it will create more traffic. And it's going to be unsafe for people. You're going to have people, elderly people, kids, trying to cross 22 to get to that Dollar General store. Now, in the past, we have asked for a light, a regular light to be put there, not a caution light. DOT states, 7 people have to be killed before you can get a traffic light. That's disgusting. And all I'm saying is, don't jeopardize the safety and the lives of the people in Haddock for tax dollars. You can get your tax dollars down the road a piece. It doesn't have to be there. And I ask you to think hard and long about doing this, and how would you feel if it was you and a Dollar General being put next to your home, which is going to come right up to my property line. And what's going to be laid there is the septic tank lines. All I can say, God help them if something happens to the septic tank lines and it comes down on my property, because we will meet somewhere else. As you can tell, I'm mad and I'm angry. And maybe a bunch of these people are too. But I know they will not get 1 penny of my money in that store.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. We'll turn it over to the board to ask questions. Any board members have any questions?
Maybe a statement to make that that I have met with the Hatter Revitalization Committee, and I've heard their concerns about the property and the letter that was sent to Chris. And I guess what I want to do is make sure and just reaffirm with Chris that you understand the request that they have, and ask that you be a good neighbor if Dollar General does decide to go there. And another request that I heard was, if Dollar General does go there, that there's some type of fencing that's placed along the boundary of the property, so that when it comes to Miss Baker's property, that she doesn't have to look at a Dollar General every time she steps out on the front door. And that if you guys come, that you'll take into consideration, coming to Miss Baker, look, this is what we're looking at doing to try to obtain her support when it comes to any type of fencing that you guys may put there if you do decide to come.
Mr. Martin, you want to go next?
Ladies first. She like she was ready to go.
Are you ready to go?
I want to clarify, this is sort of a unique situation that the board's in and the community's in. Generally, when we have a request to abandon a right-of-way, that request would be made by the property owner, and we determine, or the board determines whether or not it meets requirements under statute, which is if this portion of right-of-way no longer serves a substantial public purpose. And this and that's what the board would use as their basis for making the decision. This particular situation is a little bit different because the homeowner, through power of attorney, is represented by counsel, who has sort of gone the next step to tell us, well, this is why this request is being made and what the property would be used for in the future. So this request does not need to be legally be based on its future use. I mean, the comprehensive joint comprehensive plan does own this commercial, but the request is not made on whether or not a Dollar General is going there. The request is made to abandon a portion of a right-of-way that the homeowner is stating is no longer used and has not been used for the public interest or for public purpose. And I know Mr. Lowe went and looked at this right-of-way to sort of get it back to the legal issue, and stated that the county in a previous meeting has not maintained that right-of-way in how many years would you say?
I mean, with them buildings on it, like you said, 50, 60 years. But the road right there, we haven't done anything yet.
And this request is not actually to abandon any portion of the roadway or to close any portion of the roadway. So there's sort of two issues. This has gone a bit further than the legal issue of abandoning this right-of-way, in that the community knows why the request is being made and what the hopes of the purchaser would be going forward. But the question for the board is whether or not to abandon the request of right-of-way based on the statute and the legal requirements, not whether or not a Dollar General should go there.
I feel like when Bob got legal counsel, that he transferred it from that into something else.
But by statute, the request under Georgia law is still the request under Georgia law. And so the request to abandon this portion of right-of-way is clear in statute what the request is, what requirements have to be made. So because he has a representative speaking on his behalf doesn't change what the request is. And so I'm happy that everyone.
It's kind of great right there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too. It's still for Mr. McNair's economic benefit.
If I may.
It's not like Mr. Watson. I mean, this is a totally different situation, Mr. Watson, who comes here humbly and asks for the road in front of his home to be abandoned for his family's benefit.
Right. But he has the right to be represented by counsel. Mr. McNair could have made that request on his
But
own.
he's standing in Mr. McNair's shoes.
Right. Which any citizen would have the right to be represented by legal counsel.
I'm not questioning that, but you still have to consider that he's Mr. McNair and it's for Mr. McNair's economic benefit.
And the board would have to determine that this request is not made to benefit a single development, but that this portion of the right-of-way is no longer serving a public purpose. I'm just telling you what the statute requires. Now, the board can decide whatever they want.
It has two parts to it. They're two different statutes. And the first says it can't be for your economic benefit. Can't be for your private, personal, economic benefit.
Ma'am, there aren't two statutes that govern this, but and I can show you the law. We can go over the statute.
I've been to Mercer University School of Law
Okay, good.
all week. I've kept those librarians gainfully employed.
Okay, well, we're not going to argue. This is not an opportunity for us to argue. I just want to, I'm happy that the community has a chance to express their concerns. I'm just stating for everyone, again, that this is a unique situation. Generally, the request would have been made in a decision based on just the requirements of the statute. It's unique in that we know sort of the next step, but we don't need to sort of commingle those too much in that the board doesn't make the decision based on the law. And the board can make that decision either direction. The law does not tell them what they have to decide, okay?
Well, I understand that. I don't think any law would do that.
Right. Now, did you have
Yes,
anything you wanted to address?
I did want to address Commissioner Pitt's question about the fence, and I did speak with our neighbor, Miss Baker, is it? And we did discuss doing a privacy fence, and we'll get with her as this project progresses. And the only thing I can't promise on a privacy fence is how far close to the road, close to 22, it will get. I'll tell you, we'll get as close as we can. What we don't want to do is hurt visibility. You want to make sure there's visibility when the cars are going and turning out on the 22. So be happy to accommodate her with that. And then, yeah, to Ms. Brody's point, a lot of the discussion tonight has been almost kind of has a zoning feel to it, which in a zoning case, the board's tasked with balancing the public interest versus the private interest of the landowner and what's good. And that's not what is before this board tonight. What's before this board tonight is whether these portions of a right-of-way is used, has a substantial public benefit. She stated the language from the statute. I don't want to mess that up. Don't want to skew the interpretation, but essentially it's whether or not the public's been using this. And the fact that there are two, as a gentleman I think from the county said, there are two old buildings that are about 50 years old on the one portion, and which is along the cut through Oak Street, and then the other that is near that's on the southern margin of 22. The houses on both sides of us sit in that right of way. So there's no way. I mean, it would be very challenging to say that the public has been using that. And I would submit to this board that the gentleman that we represent, Mr. McNair, has been using this. He's been keeping up. He's been cutting the grass. He's been maintaining this for years, for decades. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. McNair has not owned that property for decades.
Well, his predecessors in time.
The county has got a side of the road. I think.
Mr. Martin, you had.
I do. Is Mr. McNair, I heard landlord. Is he a landlord?
I don't believe there's a, I don't know. He owns the property.
Yes, he is. We'll tell you, we know.
Okay. So he is a landlord. So his business is real estate, so to speak. And that was part of my curiosity when we looked at economic benefit. If this is what he does, then we would expect that he would eventually sell his property for a profit at some point. I'm a real estate broker and investor, and I'm a fan of zoning, and I believe we ought to honor that. If it's zoned commercial, then it's zoned commercial. And I think this body has a challenge sometimes with following the pattern, and maybe not this body, but historically. And then I'm a fan of the law. If the law says that he has a right to do this, and we have a right to abandon or transfer part of this property is as a matter of law, then we should be able to do that. I'm also a fan of property owners' rights, and I believe that more than anything else. As a landowner, homeowner, I believe I should be able to do whatever I want to do with my property. I also believe that I should be able to do whatever I want to do on my property. So if I want to have a chicken or a goat or go outside and shoot my .50 caliber BMG, I have a right to do so. My neighbors, however, have a right to peaceful enjoyment of their property. This particular group, I asked for a group home, and this group said, no, I could not have a group home on my own property in the middle of 16 acres with a 300-plus yard driveway and only 8 neighbors. So that's a conflict for me. So how could they rule any other way? Because they ruled in the best interest of the neighbors. So I would suspect that they would do the same if we're consistent, but we'll find out tonight. One of our challenges as community best interest is that's part of our responsibility. And I hope from a legal standpoint, we pass muster. And then the other part, doing what's best. We are trying not to raise taxes and cut services. And how do we do that? By having alternative or other streams of income. And retail and so on is the best way to do that. We don't have very many houses in this county that actually can cover the tax bill. For the record, you almost need to have a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house worth $250,000 to cover what we should be covering, just to cover our taxes as well as the school board. The other issue is I don't really know the impact of Dollar General. I know we got one on 49, and I can promise you, I don't think 5 people showed up. But maybe that says something about your community versus mine. There's a greater interest in sustaining the quality of life your community has.
Did they put the Dollar General on y'all down there right beside somebody's house?
It is beside somebody's house, but it's also next door to the water department. So, that area could use whatever it could get. It's not nestled in the middle of a neighborhood. Right. So that may be why.
That's the only objection we really
right.
have.
But crime and everything like that is paramount no matter where you go. So I hope in all of that, we are able to make a good decision. When I saw the letter come through this morning, I asked the first question, what does our comprehensive plan says? Because that's what we go by. And to a certain degree, you guys had an opportunity to speak up about the comprehensive plan. But we don't normally engage as citizens at that point because we don't understand the impact of that. The comprehensive plan says that there can be commercial through there, and it's not an arts district, because I asked that question too, and there was no designation for that. So somewhere along the line, and I asked that question too, where is the disconnect between what the community wants, what the comprehensive plan says, and what's about to happen? So somewhere along the line that happened. And Earlene is pretty active, Ms. Denson's pretty active. I don't remember that as a part of the discussion when we go through all the projects, right? And what we're going to do for the next 20 years. So my question is, if that's in the comprehensive plan and it meets zoning, what stops it?
What stops it?
Is it community's best interest? Well, and then it's sort of a rhetorical question because, again, we have a responsibility to do what the law says for us to do and zoning. But our challenge is community's best interest.
And
so
part of and what it is, part of the discussion that we had, and hopefully if the committee decides is the direction they want to go in, is trying to make it a historic district. So that going forward, if another business wanted to come into the Haddock area, they would have to meet certain standards, ordinance, and guidelines. Because even Jason McSwain, he was at the meeting last night and shared it with the committee, and hopefully the committee will decide to go down that path and review the information that was presented by the tourist group that did come through and look at making Haddock a historic arts district. But that's going to be on behalf of the Haddock Revitalization Committee if they choose that they want that. I mean, it's been presented, and I've expressed to them, like I expressed tonight, that I'm willing to have the Regional Commission come in and start the process to have that happen upon their request.
So is that going to be before or after this? So I'm clear.
Well, would it have to be after this because they have not expressed that this is what they want? It was part of the conversation. It's an option for the Hatter community to turn into a historic district, but it has not been stated, this is what we want, we're ready to move forward, get the regional commission in and have the paperwork drawn up.
Okay, so these are your constituents in your district and they don't want it.
Well, I have not had one tell me, or the committee as a whole has not said, we want to make this a historic district as well as an arts district. Okay. It's on the table, but it's upon the committee to state this is what we want so that we can go forward.
Fair enough.
Mr. Kitchens?
I think I have another comment.
Oh, go ahead, Mr.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. I mean, it's a public hearing, and like I said, we're trying to get all the input we can.
Can Dollar General fit in this place without this property that's about to be abandoned? Does it require the additional acreage for you to go forward?
I'd have to look with my engineers. It's really tight. Probably makes it less safe with our truck coming in right off the top of my head. Could it be done? Maybe so, but there will be a trade-off, and that will be truck safety.
So while this is technically not a zoning hearing, what it seems like is that there is the ability here to protect a historic neighborhood if that piece of land is key to that commercial development going ahead. And if that commercial development doesn't go ahead, then it opens the doorway for the Haddock community to reconsider the historic district and the arts district and back away from the situation they have right now. So I just submit that is a possibility that I hope y'all will think about. And if there are other places in Haddock that are more compatible for Dollar General, maybe that can be a win-win for everybody and save the neighborhood and provide Dollar General with a different location that's a better commercial setting. I would just ask y'all to think about that, please.
Well, we've looked at this site in particular now. It's been almost a year now. Like I said, that the site plan, going off of that site plan was in July, and we would have looked at a lot of different options and sites a year ago, and this is where we are today with this site. This is the site.
Mr. Kitchens, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I got a comment that, I think this is why we're charged with making tough decisions. And that's the reason why it comes before us is when you have people on one side and people on the other that want two different things. I've heard a lot about Dollar General, whether it's the right place or whether they want them there or whether it's an economic driver or whether it's good for the community. And that's not the question we're being asked, I don't think. It's whether Dollar General should even be in Haddock or whether it should be in this location or should be in another location. But the charge before us is whether we want to abandon a portion of right-of-way and what is the reason for that. That is what I'm looking at totally. I had concerns originally that the request didn't come from the homeowner or the landowner. It came from a representative that admitted day one the reason for the request, which was to build a Dollar General. So in my mind, that's hard to convince. I've got a concern. It's hard to convince me that if I voted to abandon this piece of property, that it's not specifically for a Dollar General, which is an economic and a personal gain of some sort. So I got some real concerns with that, and I said this, I said Commissioner Martin when we voted on his request. We can legally do this or we can legally do that. You know, we've got a choice to make on either one of them. A lot of times because it's legal doesn't mean it's right, and everything has a place, and so we just have to see how the vote goes.
Commissioner Ross?
I don't have anything to add.
Well, if there's no more. This time we'll entertain a motion of some sort of what direction the board wishes to go.
It says district.
Right.
Mr. Pitt?
Right. And there you go. No. And what it is, based on the information that's presented, of the abandonment of the right-of-way, then that's a legal issue that's on the docket right now. Therefore, I make the motion that you do the right-of-way, that you close the right-of-way, because that's what's at hand. So that's what I'll go with.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Yeah.
Any more discussion? I've got one more question. Y'all exhausted, and I mean, I've researched this also. If the citizens have had an opportunity to look at the zoning of Haddock and just how much commercial property is owned in Haddock, I think, Ms. Baker, is your property also zoned commercial on that?
I hope not.
I think it is.
How can I undo
I think your neighbor's on commercial. Everything from Miss Trish Ann, have you looked at it? Has anybody looked at the zoning? I think Miss Trish Ann's all the way to the corner. I got a yes. Everything from Miss Trish Ann's, including your property, is on commercial. As you come into town to the left, I think there's 40 acres zoned commercial. I could not believe the amount of commercial property.
Well, if this was on commercial back in the 80s, I was living there. Why wasn't I approached?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a part of the comprehensive plan back then or what, but to look at y'all's map on the zoning in Mr. Petrowski's office, it will surprise you at the amount of commercial property that is available in Haddock. And I think it starts all the way from the beauty salon, all the way back into the store from Miss Trish Ann's, all the way to almost, if you look at it, it's like 40 acres in there. Every bit of it's on commercial.
Don't they have to put signs up and announce planning and zoning that they're gonna do change or do something?
Back in the 80s, I don't know. I was graduating high school here in 1980. So I wasn't in the position I am now, but that's where I'm, I've done the research too.
Okay, my property be undone.
All you have to do is come up here and ask. Go to planning and zoning and ask it to be rezoned, and we'll have a public hearing.
And I'm not sure how long it's been zoned commercial, but definitely the 2017 comprehensive plan identifies this area and a substantial portion of the land through Haddock as commercial on the future land use map. It is a substantial amount of land through there zoned commercial.
So I encourage y'all to go to planning and zoning and ask them to show you the map so you can see exactly what's.
Well, I wouldn't sell commercial because I wouldn't do that to my neighbors.
Sure. But with that said, all right, any more discussion? If none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed. 3-2. Thank you. Tough decision, I'm sorry, but going forward.
I'll have the resolution for the chairman to sign along with the legal description for the minutes.
All right, going forward, consent agenda and approval for minutes. We had the work session of February 5th, 2019 at 5 o'clock. For the first Tuesday, February 5th of 2019. Thank y'all. Everybody had an opportunity to look at this, and if so, I need approval of it.
So moved, Chairman.
Second.
A motion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. If we go up to no business, if we have new business, I ask for approval for one basketball court at Matty Wells we put out for bid. Commissioner Martin has asked us numerous times about this, and I think we need to pursue this. See something else on the Morris Recreation Complex also, but I think that it's time that we look at this and at least put it out for bid and see where we're at. And I also extend the invitation, Commissioner Martin. We talked about the 27 acres you have there. Mr. Goins has told me they've already went out there and started looking at the site. I think, Matt, you've told me you've already done some flagging as far as a possible trail through there.
Yes, sir.
Public-private partnership, the chairman's also willing to throw in his equipment and one of the best operators in the county, next to John Lowe and Sidney Pittman, to run the machine, along with the county also helping in the cast. It'd be a very easy opportunity to go in there and get you something that nobody else in the county has, surrounding counties have, and have very good use out of it. That's a nature area for people to walk or maybe mountain bike. But I'll open this up discussion on approval for the basketball courts at this time.
I would say this, I appreciate the basketball court. It would be nice to have 4 tournament play. We've seen good activity down there with the youth, and right now, very few can play at the same time, and we have a variety of age groups. When I think of being able to coordinate even basketball games here, normally we run on multiple courts. And when we talk about economic development, it's about being able to drive visitation through ball play. Same thing with the baseball fields. It works on 49 because the number of fields. So I'd love for 4, and if I couldn't get 4, I'd like 2. And 4 to pad for 4. I'll buy one of the goals, and I'll help fundraise for the other 3 if y'all do 4.
Well, I looked at what's on 18, and it gets used. It looks like a nice size.
Yeah.
That's a start.
I agree. I'd like to see, because I really would love to do some tournament play out there. We have a strong basketball following, and I think it would be good for the community. And you're out there, you're pouring it. I don't think it's too much extra. I'm willing to pay for one of the hoops. I will fundraise for the other 3.
Well, we can get started on the one, and we can always add some down the road. That's the board's will. As I present that to the board, I entertain any comments or motions.
You ain't gonna make the motion?
Man, beggars can't be choosy, right? I move that I at least get 1 basketball court.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
And the only reason that I foresee us holding off on it is just for the simple fact that it was brought to our attention that there's some lighting needs that's on Highway 18 and not knowing exactly what that's going to cost. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how are you going to invest? When we know this lighting project, I would imagine it's going to be anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000. Then that project has to be taken into consideration too. So,
but does every recreation dollar have to go to Highway 18?
No, it's just what it is part of the last meeting, the whole safety issue, the concern about a lawsuit with the county, and I want to address the lawsuit and the safety concern before I would invest into a basketball court. So that was just my only comment about it. So
we were at 100 before. Is that correct, Matt? Estimated on the lighting.
Well, it went from 96 up to 140 something. So it could be anywhere from 96 to 140 something, but that's without using LED. We met
come forward to it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. After our last meeting, we met with Miss Diane Wade, and she is putting together 3 proposals right now to come back. So we'll have 3 options to look at to see where we're at price wise. So I really hard to speculate, other than the bid package we went out with last fall. The last one was 140 something.
Where were we at on we were at 40 on the sidewalks? Is that where we're
40 and some change, yes, sir.
Well, you've got one, and I'm just saying, just 180, 761 available. And Commissioner Pitts, you got 47 that you need to spend to finish this.
Oh, that won't be a part of that splosh. Yes, no, sir.
I'm just saying,
no, sir.
Just for a heads up. I mean, Ms. Vita went through. These are funds that we need to do something with this year, because the deadline's here. We're giving back to the state, so that needs to be addressed. That was the 2 numbers I had. But like I said, you're 47 separate for here. I'm just asking for the permission to put it out, see where we're at.
And then part of the discussion, if the SPLOST funds out, if we had approximately $180,000 in SPLOST funds for the 2015 SPLOST?
No, sir.
How much do we have it? 200,000?
For what?
No, just for an example, not the 09 SPLOST. How much money is in the 09 SPLOST?
That's what he's referring to. It's 180,000 and some change
So for an
That's
example,
left in 09 Splot.
okay, so 180, but we haven't spent the 40,000 for the.
Correct.
Or have we already? We have not. Because that was going to cost. Okay.
It's
40's to be.
Right. Okay. So 40's to be spent on that.
49. It's like 50,000 and some change, and we're meeting the guy in the morning to get started. It was 42,800 for the base bid with a $7,500 concrete turnouts at each intersection. So that's 49, 50, 53.
Right, just rough numbers. If we got 180,000, we're going to spend approximately 50,000 on this driveway. We only have 130,000 for lighting, and we know lighting is going to be right now. It can be $140,000. So we're going to have to come with potentially $10,000 from the general fund if the lighting costs $140,000. And this basketball court is going to cost anywhere from maybe 10 to 15, give or take. So just to bring it to the board's attention. So.
Matt, did we look at shorter poles uplighting with the LED? Because you get a lot more lumens with an LED, so you don't have to go as big a light fixture.
That's what she's coming back with. Her concern is the fields that need to be upgraded all have wooden poles. Her concern is LED is a lot heavier fixture than the old fixtures that are there, the high intensity fixtures that are there. And her concern is putting those LEDs on top of wooden poles because they're a much heavier fixture. But that's options that she is coming back with. Right. Yes, sir.
Because one of the issues with putting on a tall pole is you got to get the light high enough so that the ball doesn't go out of sight and back into it. But now you're seeing a lot of them now. The light fixture comes down, say 30, 35 foot, and then you put up lighting so that you're shining above that with your light reflection. So when the ball goes up, you still see it in light. Comes back down. It never goes out of sight, out of light, and back into light, which is the danger.
Correct.
Coming down to a 35-foot pole instead of a 80, 90-foot pole is a lot less stress on the height of the pole. So I'm hoping that will save us some money and get us back into the right range.
Okay. All right. Back on the basketball court, we had a motion and a second, correct? Any more discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
3-2 again. Matt, I think you're asking for approval for back cages at Morris Recreation Complex as an original site plan?
Yes, sir. Back in budget time, we had submitted this in our budget, and the board decided to pull capital improvement projects out of department head budgets and put it in contingency fund. And we were charged with coming back at a later time to request those contingency funds, and that's what I'm here for tonight, is to come and request the batting cages for Morris Bank Recreation Complex. Per the original site plans, there is batting cages that belong on that property up there, and they're badly needed because we play youth sports up there every night starting now, and there's nowhere for those kids to practice or warm up or anything prior to games or anything there is on the lower section. So anyway, 3 batting cages, total estimated price is $6,628. I'm requesting that to build 3 batting cages out of contingency fund.
Any questions? What's the board's will on this?
I don't think it's later enough yet. He said come back later. I don't think.
I don't think it's what?
I don't think it's later enough yet.
Right.
Chairman, just a question. We were talking about sponsorship money and that kind of stuff. Is there any way we can get sponsorship money to, if we're renting space on our billboards, or we got some money for sponsoring the fields. Is there enough, or is there any? I don't know what that account.
I'll have to get with Levita. I don't know how much we have in the project funds or sponsorship funds. I do know we have some in there, and we should have at least this amount, but I'm not 100% sure.
I would rather see it come out there just because of just what Commissioner Pitts just said. Now we're out of contingency.
Mm-hmm.
Even on our best days. So.
Right. Isn't Miss Moore working on that type of thing?
Yes, sir. And like I said, we've raised, I don't know exactly how much is in there right now, but it exceeds this amount. I do know it exceeds this amount. I know that just simply because the first check we got from Morris Bank.
Well, I've definitely heard from several people that it's a long ways to the batting cages on the bottom fields.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a need.
What's the board's wish?
I'd make a motion to approve if we can take it out of sponsorship funding.
A motion to have a second.
The sponsorship, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead,
The
Commissioner.
sponsorship fund, is there anything else that we owe out of that fund?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir. We haven't allocated anything specific out of that particular fund. That fund was the whole concept behind the marketing plan or the marketing program was to raise money using our recreation facilities through local sponsorships, and then that money go into a special account for projects that may come forth by the advisory committee or projects which the board deems necessary to spend the money on. So there's no one individual project that the money is set aside for. It's whatever the board deems necessary.
And I know you don't know this by heart, but do you have that list that was put together by the advisory board? They listed maybe 5 to 10 items that they felt like was a priority when it came to all of our facilities. I know you don't have it in front of you, but
I do, and the main one was the interior walkways, which we're addressing, the lighting in the old park, which we're addressing, waiting to get the bids or the estimates back, the lighting going from the old park to the new park, which we're addressing with Tri-County, and I can go ahead if I may go ahead and let you know that now. What we're looking at with Tri-County is it's $900 for them to install the equipment, and then it's I don't want to get this wrong. I want to say it's $90 a month for 5 LED fixtures, directional fixtures to go on those poles. So what you would have is 5 light fixtures going from the old section to the new section, illuminating a walkway down through there. So you're looking at a $900 upfront cost and then a residual monthly payment of $90 a month for those 5 light fixtures.
and I guess how would we fund that project? Any proposals? Because I mean that would be an ideal, in my opinion.
And
but to use some of those funds from sponsorship, being that you're addressing the items that the advisory board listed for the board to consider.
I mean, we could pull the $900 out of that fund if the board deemed necessary, but the $90 residual would be something Levita would have to build into the budget on an annual basis.
And what's the next item? Last thing. If you can think of another, and if you can't, then that's fine.
Well,
too.
no, the other two are pie in the sky kind of thing,
so
which
big
is
ticket
asphalt
items.
in the parking lot.
Okay, big ticket items, right, yeah.
We've got a motion on the table. You got a second?
The motion was for it to come out of sponsorship.
Or maybe we can get sponsors for those batting cages.
Well, what's the motion?
To do the back cages and use the sponsor money.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to mention something real quick. Contingency was mentioned earlier, and this also applies to number 6. And this doesn't, I understand the motion's related to the sponsorship money, but we started out with $981,002 as our contingency amount. The specific items that were approved by the budget, by the commission during the budget process amounted to $647,555. So that leaves you with a contingency amount now of $333,447. And I don't think we've had any other items to be spent out of that contingency thus far in the fiscal year.
Okay.
Boy, basketball courts.
I got you one on there. Thank you very much. All right, I have a motion to second. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor, aye?
Opposed.
Oppose.
Because we're taking out a sponsorship fund. I got a quick question. Do we have a sponsor for 49 yet?
No, sir. Still working on it.
A great opportunity. Might be 3 more basketball.
It's hard if the county doesn't do it. I mean, we had $1 million in surplus and we spent 10 grand over there. We got 333,000. So
You've got a real nice offer from the chairman to help a public-private
I
partnership.
sure appreciate that.
And the school board has also kicked in. Mark Smith said that if we needed his services for bridges or anything like that his welding class would love the opportunity to help the county if they supply the materials to build if we had to bridge any low-lying area or whatever to bridge, if he would love the opportunity to work with the county and do this.
Again, I appreciate and I thank everybody, but we know what the voters voted for, and that was for a competitive track. And again, I don't want to give that away because, we choose not to make that investment when we have the dollars. And even if it was an asphalt track that did not have any bleachers, that gives our kids a place to run. Right now, track season has started, and those kids are going to be on the road this entire season. So I understand. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, if we go forward, where were we going forward? There we go. Approval request for qualification for 2009 CDBG engineering firm of Susan. There we go. You didn't know you're going to be in such a long meeting tonight, did
I
you?
had no idea what I was getting myself into tonight. So before I get started with going over what our formal recommendation is, I handed you all a map and I want to get conflicts of interest on the record. So if you live, have a business, own any property in this area, please make it known so it can be recorded in the minutes, and please do not take a vote on this matter tonight.
Well, I've been on record on multiple occasions that our family has a trust. It's got 2 on Sun Valley. It's got 116 and 134 Sun Valley are in a family trust.
And of course, I own property in that neighborhood, so nope.
You do?
Oh, absolutely. It's my district.
Oh, do you or do you?
I do, yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I have to know.
For the record, you want to name, mine was 116, 134 Sun Valley. That's
McCreary Drive, and my mother-in-law's on McCreary Drive, and I own 4 acres there as well, in between McCreary and McClinton, and I'm probably going to own something on Alton Road in a short time.
I don't know anything over there.
Okay, you're safe. You're safe. Chairman Wyden, you're safe. All right.
No, we have 2 that'll need to abstain.
Okay, 2. Okay.
But I can need a motion to go forward on this, or what?
Well, you've still got a majority of 3 or.
Okay, we're good. So,
Okay.
if you'll.
Okay. So based on our evaluation, we had 3 people look over 4 different proposals that came into us by close of yesterday, and our recommendation is to go with Carter and Sloop, who scored the highest on these proposals. We looked at 3 categories: project experience, so looking at completion of projects, particularly CDBG in the past few years, and experience with significant or similar projects to what we're looking at here. Staffing capacity, do you have the staff available to complete this project? And then project approach, so looking at timeline and then the general steps going through this. And so based on those categories, we recommended Carter and Sloop to do this project for engineering.
Any questions?
Were there any cost evaluations in it, or we don't have any cost yet?
So the only thing that they give is % of construction cost. And don't quote me exactly on this. I think Carter and Sloop said 6 to 8% of construction costs go to engineering. I believe Ingram was about up to like 8.2%. Falcon Design, I want to say, was up to 10%, and Hofstetter, I want to say, was somewhere between 8 and 10.
All right. You've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we approve working with Carter and Sloop for the CDBG engineering firm.
All right, I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Vote.
So just majority.
You've got 2 that have to abstain, so.
Okay, so.
So
So how does that
you
one
don't
play?
have a majority that's
Okay.
voted
All right,
in
so
favor.
it's only 2 good.
So this is gonna delay our CDBG.
And it's pushing to get it done at this point. So because from this point, we would need to get a preliminary engineering report, and that can take up to 30 days.
And the consequences of not getting your CDBG in?
We just don't submit this year.
Mr. Chairman, just some sort of background on this. So we're going through, the Regional Commission now is going through and doing income surveys in this area. Just sort of the way the timeline of CDBG lays out, you have to do it sort of in a backwards fashion in some sense. So we don't know at this point if this area even qualifies for a CDBG. But it's almost like you have to start the process and select an engineering firm before you even know if you've got a viable project or not. And so sort of leading up to the project, leading up to the formal application, you have to go through and do this formal selection of an engineer, and you have to do income surveys where you go to each house and get the person to indicate how much they make to even determine if there's a viable project there. So at this point, all the board is tasked with doing is selecting which engineering firm you want to help you with the creation of that preliminary engineering report, which would really only be used if the income surveys come back and show that the area meets the low to moderate income requirements.
And to just give a little more background, so the original survey area, we're considering this as an extension of the Sun Valley project. And so Ingram and Associates has been the engineer on that project and has kind of given us the general idea of where he knows that there may be some issues going forth. And as Mr. Richmond said, we are going through and doing the income surveys and also asking residents, do they have any issues with their septic tanks, any backups, any sewage overflows and so forth, to get a better sense of the issues. And then this area is much larger than what will likely be served, but we need to go and get those surveys because 70% of the area has to qualify as low to moderate income. And so, like Jason said, it's kind of having two processes come together in a really weird way at some point in about 3 weeks to figure out what that final area and project looks like.
See, Alton Road currently is not under the Sun Valley project.
No.
We've got as much problem, I know, because I used to own properties on there, we've got as much problem on Alton Road as we've got Sun Valley.
And when I first got elected, Ms. Henson and that group over there expressed concerns about that, and it is what it is, but we know, like the chairman says, there are areas that have challenges. I've seen raw sewage over there. From an income standpoint, I could say they qualify because I've knocked on a good 80% of those doors. And if you drive through, you feel it and you see it. So.
Well, this fails for unanimous vote.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Let's see, we go forward to number 4. We approve GFA CW 2016019 loan modification to extend completion date to May 1, 2020. Rick, are you handling that tonight?
Yes, sir. Tim's not here anywhere. So, Mr. Chairman, this would extend, this GFA loan that's referenced here is the loan that will help serve as the match for the existing CDBG in Sun Valley, and it also is the funding source that will let us run the force main out to the industrial park. This just extends the completion date to May 1st, 2020, which is about 6 months beyond the projected end of the project. So we plan to be finished with both of those things by the end of 2019, and this extends the loan completion date out beyond that. So we feel like this will give us ample time to finish both of those projects and complete all the paperwork associated with them. So.
Okay. So, need approval, a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? If none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed. All right. Surplus vehicles and equipment.
I'll take that one, Mr. Chairman, and John's here, and he can jump in.
Behind the desk there for some reason.
And I think Matt's got a few things on the list, not trying to throw you under the bus, but since you're here, you'll recall we had several months back, we had a list of surplus equipment that we sent some of it to the auction. At that time, we had some other items that we've established a reserve price for, and they'll be going in an upcoming auction. We have now got a list that's in your packet there of some other items that we'd like for the board to declare surplus so that they can be added to the auction. In addition to what you have in your book, there are two additional items. One of those is the old sign truck. You'll recall that the board approved some months ago I think we initially went out for bid, didn't get any results, and were eventually able to just purchase a replacement for our sign truck. So this would put the old sign truck cab and chassis in the auction. We're retaining the body that'll be placed on the new truck. And there's also a trailer, an old military trailer that we would like to add to the auction. So my request would be that the board approve declaring the items on your list and the old sign truck and the old military trailer surplus, and so that we can send them to the auction.
Tax assessor fees,
Yes, and that's a good point. We can go ahead and add that one to the auction as well, if the board so chooses.
Any questions? None, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? None, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you very much. Budget amendment for a tax assessor. Mr. Resnick, I think you got this one also, don't you?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. At the last meeting, you recall the board approved the purchase of a new vehicle for the tax assessor's office. At that time, I failed to jump in there and ask where you would like to pull the money from. I mentioned earlier that we have that surplus contingency money still there that you could draw from. My assumption is that's where the board would want to pull that from, but I didn't want to make that call on my own, and so just wanted to come to you and request that the board amend the budget, moving $30,000 from the contingency line item to the tax assessor's budget for the purpose of paying for that vehicle.
Any questions? None, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? None, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Department head. Mr. Lowe, you want to start us off tonight?
I don't have anything.
Mr. Pelkey?
Okay, appreciate it.
I know Matt's coming up.
Yeah, I do got it.
You're not gonna miss an opportunity.
Hey, giving away money, so I'm coming. No, you mentioned earlier about the District 2 funds, $40-some thousand left in their Splot 09 Splot budget. Spoke with Commissioner Pitts. I'd like to, bring an idea to the board. Hopefully we can get a consensus. We're getting ready to start on the dog park fence side. You see the walkways done. We'll have some funds left over after that because we're doing the fence in-house. And so with that, spoke with Commissioner Pitts about doing outdoor wellness equipment. Basically, what you're looking at, pass this photo around, let you kind of get an idea of, twist and turn. It's outdoor equipment. It may be a outdoor elliptical machine, outdoor monkey bars, outdoor treadmill type thing, or a ski type thing. But anyway, it's outdoor equipment I would like to put out here that would not just be utilized by our employees, but would utilize any and everyone from the community that visited this park. They can walk the track, use this equipment to exercise on, and just bring about better community health and wellness as a whole. And I'd just like to be able to move forward with this project to keep it going in a timely manner with your consensus of that.
Have you looked into the cost of it yet, Matt?
No, to be honest with her, I didn't because not that my time's any more valuable than anybody else's, but I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time chasing a rabbit down a hole that's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
If you could research that and maybe get back with us in the next meeting of your finding. I just wanted to bring it to attention that both of y'all had funds that need to be spent this year.
But is this an idea that you have that may be okay to go again? I'm trying to not get your approval to purchase the equipment. I'm trying to get your consensus on this may be a concept that you're okay with.
What's everybody's thoughts?
I'm okay with looking into it.
Simply looking into it, because I brought up the idea years ago about outdoor wellness, outdoor equipment, and I don't know, I'm just kind of curious about it because right now, the one in Macon, I'm curious how much is it being used at Amerson Park. The good part about that one is it's in the shade, so you have a lot of sun. That one's going to be in the blazing hot sun, and when it comes to people sitting on it, potentially getting burned, and I just don't know how much it'll be used. So that's just the only concern I have about it right now.
Mm-hmm.
How much is it being used? Any idea? In Macon?
I don't know how to differentiate between park goers and who's using the equipment because it's on the trail, but last year we were over 700,000 people come to the park last year, so I don't know what percentage of that uses it, but according to the staff, it's constantly being used out there. But again, you're right, it's shaded. I would think you're probably going to need to look at some shade sales over that section of it. But I'd be a little bit concerned that if we're going to have a dog park, how many people are going to use it that close to the dog park? And, always good to have the numbers. I don't know where the money's going to come from, but.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Resner? I don't have anything. Attorney Brody, have you got anything?
I don't, thank you.
Wow. This is unusual. All right, we go for citizen comments. Anyone would like to come forward? No citizen not like to come forward? Commissioner Martin, would you like to start us off on commissioner's comments tonight?
I do. I just want to say, in the back of the audience, if you don't mind, come up real quick. Do y'all know who this is? He's the executive director of the Middle Georgia Consortium, or now WorkSource Georgia. WorkSource Middle Georgia. He's our executive director. He's in charge of workforce development. So when we were going through the process, exactly. So we're happy to have him. This is Mr. Daryl Stillings. Does a good body of work for the 10-member counties. And specifically, we're trying to do some additional programming here in Jones County. But just please share what you do and who you're with and who's working in our area.
Thanks, Chairman Martin. Yes, my name is Daryl Stillings. Like Chairman Martin said, I am the executive director of the Middle Georgia Consortium. And what we do is, in a nutshell, provide opportunity for people with talent. Currently, we serving 43 citizens of Jones County, and we helping them to become self-sufficient in whatever training they want to go into. So right now, we have a youth thing that we're trying to get together. I think it's going to work out. I'm going to the state tomorrow, to the State Workforce Development Board, and currently we have like 75% of our funds got to go to out-of-school youth, and 25 to in-school youth. So tomorrow, hopefully, get past that. We get a waiver for the from the federal government to do 50-50. So, Chairman Martin, we're working for you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And nice to meet you.
Beyond that, I'm excited about getting a basketball court again. Y'all find some extra cash, throw 2 to 4 out there. We're out there, and it's a small thing. We don't ask for much. We barely come up and fuss, except when their district commissioner wants to do a group home. I've never seen that many of my folks come out. With that being said, I appreciate the work that the group is doing, and that in particular. I give Parks and Rec a tough time, mostly because very little happens in our district, but I'm happy to see that programming is happening. I don't know what's happening with foot golf. I was out and just happened to hear some guys talking about golf, so I asked some questions. They're happy with the progress that the golf course has made, and again, I give the golf course a hard time because I continually believe that we just sink money, but it's nice to know that people do value it. That it has made progress, and if foot golf becomes an opportunity, so be it for our citizens. Comprehensive plan, I think we have an opportunity. We saw tonight that people didn't even know the zoning of their properties. And that's a concern for me. When you buy a property, most people don't even think about what the designation is because we assume it's R1. We need to probably go back and revisit that and explain to people, at least put it out on a map, and show them. And then if they want to come back and invite them to the process so they understand how to do it, how to do a variant so it's all squared away. I learned the hard way. I'd rather that they learn the right way, so that we can move forward in a comprehensive plan. We need to invite them to participate because I don't think people really know, the impact of that, and they learned tonight. And it is what it is. So if we got $333,000 left, let's strategically plan out what else we need to do. And every area in our community has needs. It shouldn't all just go to one particular area or to a park. But if we have some things outside of a legal battle that might test this amount, let's find some resources to put into our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Mr. Robinson?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Oh. Commissioner Pitt?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I know Commissioner Kitchens has got
I
something.
wouldn't have had anything until we brought it up. Now, I do have some concerns about our failure to get somebody on board to move forward with the CDBG grant stuff. So this went out as a request for proposal, a request for qualifications. Can we get? I'm a little concerned that we didn't have the information on this, maybe the metrics or how we got to this point, because we shouldn't get to a point where three of us are voting on something and we don't all agree on something to move forward with the county, because this is big for us not to make this decision. Can we get the metrics, the scoring cards, and how we got to this point? I mean, I heard us talk about Ingram working with what we have now. I don't know how they could not score as having knowledge of what we're doing. Now, so I'd like to see how the other one scored on some higher. Maybe it was cost, maybe it was others, but
sure.
I mean, I can respond to that and would be glad to share our evaluation table with you. I think for the thing that the reviewers noted on Ingram was particularly within the last 3 years. So we use DCA and then HUD guidelines to help evaluate the proposals we get, and they really want us to look at what are the completion rates of CDBG projects, particularly within the last 3 years. That is very highly ranked and given a lot of points. Ingram just does not have that. They have a relationship with Jones County, and that is definitely given points in thinking about their experience. But because DCA wants to get these projects completed and going, I think that they really put that in high priority. The other thing we see is that Ingram, the staffing capacity just wasn't, they're giving guidelines. We give so many points per number of staff members that are assigned to the project. That just wasn't available in some of the other proposals that were more lowly ranked. We really look for timelines. Do you have specific markers or when things are going to be done? Where are the milestones? How are you going to meet with the community? How are you going to make sure that everybody's on the same page? So we looked at that in the implementation proposal as well. But I would be glad to share that evaluation table.
yeah, because I mean we've done CDBG grants through DCA in Jones County before.
Right.
I think our challenge is with this particular project, it's taken a long time, and it's not Tim's fault why it took so long. We had some folks we had to get negotiated with regard to land purchase, and of course the right of ways that took a little while longer. And I wish that we could have put a letter of support in general, at least outlining that, because I think unfortunately that hurt them.
And you do not have to go with the one that's the most highly ranked. That is not a requirement at all. This is simply our evaluation based on the proposals we received. If you as a county commission think that we've had a really strong relationship with the previous engineer,
if Tommy wanted to go with
I think that's
Meeting's not closed if you want to bring the issue back to the table.
And that's what I would ask, because I would hate for us to miss out on this grant opportunity, that if the board just goes with Ingram and Associates, if that would satisfy Mr. Robinson, so that we can continue to move forward with this project.
Mr. Robinson?
Well, I believe you said that his rate was higher.
I mean, marginally so. Carbon Soup was 6 to 8, and then Ingram was up to 8.2 of the construction cost. It's nothing that is particularly out of range with any of the engineering firms that we see. We get really nervous when we start to see 10%, and he's nowhere near that. And just for note, the PER is, the preliminary engineering report is generally considered to be a leverage and in-kind service. So that's something that we value about $5,000, which goes to leverage on the CDBG. Usually, and I believe this is the case in Ingram, if the CDBG is not awarded, that is not money that you will have to pay him. Just like it's not money you pay the regional commission for helping to prepare the application. Those are considered in-kind and leverage services.
I just see us going down a long road of getting a new engineer. I think they're all qualified. If, they wouldn't be engineers with these firms. If they weren't qualified, they wouldn't apply to do this project. But I think the learning curve in bringing in an engineer at this point in the game that doesn't have the history and the background and experience of what we've got to this point is really going to hurt us. And I think it's going to cost us in time and probably in money too.
Mr. Chairman, because of Mr. Ingram's experience with Jones County and because of the things he has done for Jones County and because of his knowledge of Jones County and being a native Jones County, and that would change my vote.
This is a first for me. Is this something we revisit or?
Okay, and the meeting's not, we've not adjourned, so.
Okay.
A new motion would need to be made.
To rescind
the previous motion
Yes.
and Jonathan made the motion?
I think Sam did.
Sam?
Chairman, if it's in order, I make a motion to rescind the previous vote.
Okay, well, I make the motion that I rescind the initial vote to go with Carter and Sloop and make the motion we work with Ingram and Associates to move forward with this community development block grant engineering firm.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Friendly second.
All right. Any more discussion? If none, all in favor? Aye.
And then on the record, you and Commissioner Martin would need to abstain.
Abstain.
And this is all done by the book, I'm sure?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make sure. That's a new one on me. Hey, you mind? You can do it.
Hey, you can do it.
I'll
That's
put it
right.
for the county. All right, thank y'all very much.
So the new motion. We need a new motion.
I think I just did it.
Yeah, he made he would rescind
Oh,
it
and a
and
motion,
made a
okay.
new motion, yeah.
And it voted 3-0.
Keep us in line, Chairman. That's what you need to. You got a gavel over there. Keep us in line.
All right, you're still talking. Go ahead, go for it.
I'm through. That's all I need, Chairman.
Wow. All right. Chairman's gonna say something tonight. I'd like to see department heads go through. I've already talked to several of them. I've been able to visit several departments. I want to again thank everybody for what you do. Next meeting we have, I'd like to see a list of anything that y'all have that exceeds our $10,000 mark for a year's worth of purchasing, so we stay in compliance with our purchasing policy, whether it be chemicals, rock, culverts. Obviously, there's going to be some standouts that we won't be able to get additional prices on, but the fact that we did make the effort, we need to, for the public's good, we need to make that effort. So if it's not too much trouble, if y'all can sit down and figure out what you have and get with Mr. Risner so we can present those items for bid, so we can do it on a yearly basis to assure us a guaranteed price at least for the year, plus give the opportunity to bid these items out on a sealed bid basis. But again, we appreciate each and every one of you, and I'm visiting with Parks and Rec in the morning, and I'm trying to stick my head in all the department heads, thanking them for the job well done. Both workers' comp, we've got probably the best record this county's ever seen, plus the fact that we turned this county from 600-something thousand in the hole the first budget season to where we're at right now, just through the efforts of the employees finding ways to cut costs and be more efficient in their operation, and we appreciate every bit of it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if you're sending them back out, I know we had talked about locating a new rock source at one point.
That's one of them.
Okay.
That's it. That's part of the 10,000. We've got, I think, John, we talked about rock and culvert, possibly the seal, what you put in the surface treatment. Don't you go over 10,000 on it. That's
Talking about Parmesan.
No,
emulsion.
Emulsion. Excuse me.
Emulsion, yeah.
Right. Any product you see, I see a lot of checks every month that go for maybe rock, emulsion, chemicals, and over a year period of time, we're going over $10,000. Well, we need to bid that out. That way we know we're guaranteed those prices for a year. Rock, to give you a perfect example, Rock's notorious for giving you a 2-month notice. We're going up 10% on our rock next month. This will enable us to secure a price through that budget season for the full year, so we don't get a surprise of 10% on rock. Plus, it gives the people that are bidding, knowing this it's a sealed bid, and gives them the comfort to know that they're bidding, on a competitive basis. And that's all we're asking for.
I really meant finding a location, if we could find another site, if it made sense.
And there's over 50 years worth of rock on the two we have now.
He's talking about it, plate dirt.
Oh, plate dirt.
Right, and the other stuff.
Oh, I thought you were talking about another rock quarry.
Oh, no. Sorry.
You said rock.
Plate dirt. I'm
Okay,
a
all
city
right.
guy.
All right, plate dirt, I understand. Okay, thank you. Thank everybody very much. Got citizens comment. I need a motion to adjourn and go into executive session for real estate.
Mr. Chairman, before we do, I want to clarify something about the plate dirt. I believe it was brought up that some people, some property owners who may have it on their property are in conservation. And if they do, then it might be possible that we look at working a deal with them.
That would have to go before the Board of Assessors, because we don't have that.
Whatever it takes.
Right. Right.
I just want to
Sure.
clarify that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Need a motion to adjourn, going into executive session for real estate.
So moved.
A second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you very much.